Howdy everyone. You know that old trope in stories where the bad guy gets more power the more you say his name? From Lord Voldemort to Freddy Krueger to Jace the Mind Sculptor to the devil himself. It's been instilled in us that some enemies are so terrifying that even their name dares not be spoken, lest it unleash a monster. And yet, the modern prevailing narrative is that after a certain point, fear in the name as a repellent stops working and becomes fruitless. And when the name is no longer feared, and when the person can't be feared out of existence, the real battle begins. When I say socialism, a lot of words will inevitably come to mind, depending on how you were raised. Words like utopia, communism, Marxism, Stalin, famine, totalitarianism, 1984, Animal Farm, the list goes on. And there are a lot of different reasons for a lot of those words to be linked to socialism as a concept, some legitimate, some not so legitimate, but for this video, I want to instead talk about what it is, rather than the boogeyman that's been built around it. Don't worry though, they'll be explained at a later point, but instead, for now, I need you to try your best to get these characterizations and mischaracterizations out of your head. This series is going to be about socialism, so you're going to have to get used to the word a little bit. Socialism, socialism, socialism. Socialism, at its core, is defined as the workers owning their own means of production. This is fancy speak for if you're a worker and you do work, then that work, and thereby the value that you add to society with that work, does and should belong to you. To simplify that, if you have a pile of wood and you do 6 hours of work on that wood and you build a fancy chair and sell it for £200, then that £200 is yours. Socialism is essentially a meritocracy. Compare that with what we have today. Let's say you sign a contract with a woodworking business where you agree to get paid £20 an hour. You get given a pile of wood and some tools to do the same 6 hours of work, you build the exact same chair, and then you sell it for £200. Your company gives you your £120 for 6 hours of work. But something isn't right here. You did all the work, but you're getting paid £80 less. And you might say, sure, you're being given the original wood, which maybe cost the company about £35, £40. Also, you're being given access to the tools and location, but you didn't damage any of them in any meaningful way. Maybe the electricity you used is worth £2, but other than that, the rest of the money goes away, like a magic trick. Now, I'm going to ruin the illusion for you. That money doesn't actually disappear. Instead, it goes up. It funnels up the company to your managers and your managers' managers, all the way up to the board of directors. The company just made over £40 on your 6 hours of work without doing any of it. And that's because they own your work, thanks to that pesky little contract you signed, in which they convinced you that's what your work was worth. This is called profit. And multiply that £40 across thousands of companies and millions of employees, and you can create a limitless system where you can accumulate billions of pounds worth of stolen labour. If you're a CEO and you've made your way by exploiting people up to the top, those people might just find out that they're being robbed. And if they do that, then yeah. So it's probably in your best interests to try to stop them from doing that. And you have two choices. You can either stop exploiting them and maybe pay them reparations for the profits that you already stole from them, or you can just make up a couple centuries worth of barely hidden lies to keep them down while continuing to exploit them for all you can. And only one of them lets you keep all that money you stole, so obviously the logical choice is to do the latter. And this is what they did and continue to do to this day. And they do this by turning the concepts of workers having rights to their own work into socialism, and then turn socialism into this crazy boogeyman. They turn the idea of a minimum wage into a communist pipe dream, the 40-hour work week a criminal conspiracy, health standards unnecessary if the workers can't sue, and jobs, no matter how crappy and draining and harmful and cheap they are, into a privilege that you'll forever be indebted to. Nowadays, however, people's minds are slowly changing. Human rights have been fought for and won over the years. and more people aren't afraid of talking about socialism anymore. A federal minimum wage bill of $15 an hour, despite being marketed by the media as a socialist destruction of Western civilization, got majority support in the US election in Florida, despite voting Republican in the US general election. And as a result, corporations and conservatives are changing their tactics slightly. Now that people are thinking about socialism, or at least progressive economic policy with regards to workers' rights, they have to actually try and defeat it now in the marketplace of ideas. And they do that in various ways, none of which we have the time to discuss in this episode, but all of which we will get into in part 2 of this mini-series. In the meantime though, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.